We're waiting on Pam, but we'll start for you.
Please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Des Moines County Board of Supervisors meeting, November 22nd, 2022. Right now, we shall have the swearing-in ceremony of Natalie Steffner for the Des Moines County Recorder. So,
Okay, now raise your right hand for me. I, Natalie Steffner,
I, Natalie Steffner,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the Office of the Recorder
discharge all the duties of the Office of the Recorder
in Des Moines County
in Des Moines County
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
All right, I will have you sign. Can we borrow a pen? Thank you. You can sign here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Natalie, thank you.
Better.
Congrats,
Yes,
congrats.
sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You know what you're here for? Come on, come on, man.
Congratulations.
put these over here for safekeeping right
Thank
away.
you.
Good idea.
Is there any changes to the agenda?
I have none.
I have none either. We shall meet with department heads and elected officials. Sarah Doty, the payroll and auditors.
Good morning. Just keeping busy as usual. Nothing new to report at this time.
Okay, thank you. Colin Gerst, IT.
Good morning. Just keeping busy like always, nothing to report.
You know, they all, Tom, they all, Shane, they all say to keep busy like always.
We're busy people.
Looks like always.
We have to throw that in or you'll throw more work at it.
Right, exactly.
I picked on that one real
Good
quick, must have
answer,
time.
Sheriff, good answer.
Jim, you're always welcome to come in and help in any office.
Yeah.
I've actually had a week of nothing to do, so.
It's only Tuesday.
Yes. Yesterday I attended the Iowa State Sheriff's and Deputies Association Legislative Committee meeting, just working on some legislative priorities. One of those is working on some fentanyl legislation. There's just some loopholes there that are just bringing fentanyl into our community. So we're working on some changes there. Some other areas that we're looking at is just hands-free legislation for cell phone use, some areas that we could just make the road safer. Attended the Minneapolis and Danville City Council meetings last night, and both very happy. They've I love hearing the positive comments back towards our deputies, how they're handling situations and how they're treating citizens, so all good positive feedback from there. Other than that, our jail's at 96 this morning. 7 of those were in intake, so we should see that number go down. 10 of those are waiting on halfway house placement, so that continues to be an issue. Just room in the halfway house, and unfortunately they stay at our jail until there's room there, so we're waiting on placement there. Another's waiting on treatment placement, but we have 20 out of county of those 96 right now.
That, the sad part about that is, they're on the county's.
Yeah, that's money that's not reimbursed when they're waiting, so unfortunately, we're just at the mercy, and so the halfway house, they'll see, people will go to the halfway house both as part of sentencing, but also as released from prison, and when they're released from prison, those inmates take priority because they're state inmates and the state dictates that, so unfortunately, we have to wait until there's room and then there's not a need for the state until we get our placement.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Trent, here, right, the attorney's office?
So we're coming off, last week was fall conference, then this week there's something going on Thursday, I can't remember, but we're not working. So, like I said, there's no court tomorrow, I told you this earlier, no court tomorrow, so we'll be able to start catching up with things. But yeah, and with that, the halfway house and getting people in, I mean, the Department of Corrections, I've had that, they're upset because some of them are getting let back out in the community that maybe we would prefer that to happen, but, it's a resource thing. It's a very limited resource, and we're trying the best we can to get people into, things and to have, other resources throughout the state. But at the end of the day, it just is what it is.
Yeah, there's only enough room, and unfortunately, when we're waiting for somebody to go up to Oakdale to get placed, they've got to let people out for them to come in.
Yeah.
So it continues to be a concern. We'll keep doing our thing and doing the best we can.
Well, we appreciate that.
And then we got a work session after this, and that's it.
Okay. Thanks, Trent. Chris Lee, County Conservation.
Good morning. With the change in the weather, the field crew is going to be trying to get some burns down at the Big Hollow today and tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes, I guess. We've done a really good job of kind of getting in front of our invasive species control with some of these burns, and so we're going to try to squeeze some more of those in. Our Nature Center staff is looking at trying to put together some winter programs, looking at doing like a winter day camp over the winter break for some students anyway. So they're trying to work out those logistics, and we'll be listing those once we get those kind of organized. We'll be listing those through the website.
Okay.
Short week.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Zach James, Southeast Iowa Regional Planning.
Yeah, things going well with land use stuff. We've got the agenda item today on the airport ordinance. We've got the wind and solar ordinance drafts out for review. I think we gave everybody through December 9th, I believe. I don't know if that's the right date, but early December. We'll plan to come back and do a work session kind of mid-December. Other than that, we've got probably have a subdivision on the agenda for next week, and just a couple other things here and there, a couple floodplain development permits and things of that nature going on. So Jared will be out of the office the rest of the week. I'll be out starting tomorrow, and then move back next Monday.
Thanks, Zach.
Yep.
Natalie Stepner, our new county recorder.
Good morning, just business as usual. ArcaSearch did leave on Wednesday, I believe. They packed up all their stuff. They're the ones that were digitizing the auditor's books and then a few of our grantees. So they had a lot of stuff with them, that's for sure, but just keep them busy.
Well, good, thank you. Should I ask your husband and your kids if you've been busy?
You can.
Ken Hydeman, Seal Region Mental Health.
Yeah, good morning. I have a mobile crisis meeting this afternoon with a provider. We've got an RFP out for mobile crisis. We had mobile crisis going last year for a little while for a couple of counties, but not down here in Burlington, in Des Moines County. But we got this RFP out, and we've got some questions from one of our providers, how mobile crisis is similar to the mobile assessments that Optimate is doing now in the 8 counties. So we're gonna talk with them about that, and I don't know where that'll go, but we keep trying to get more of these crisis services set up that the state's asking us to do. Otherwise, just continue to keep busy like everyone else. The hospital contract we were missing one of the signatures on the hospital contract. We did get the second signature on it, so it's gonna go on to the governing board now. We had offered them some urgent care slots in addition to the general hospital contract that we've had for years and years and years, and They never asked for those slots though, so you know, you have to have enough staff to do that, therapists and stuff like that, so we're just gonna have a very basic contract that'll go onto the governing board for the hospital, so. Yep, that's about it.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Terry Johnson, County Auditor.
Good morning. We have been very busy in our office. Finally, thank you guys for coming in Friday and finalizing the last canvas, the official canvas. Because we were busy doing all of those administrative recounts and getting all that stuff, we got a little behind on deeds. We're trying to catch up on that. And we are also, there's some other things too. There's too many things to discuss, so if you want to come and help in the office, Jim, feel free.
Okay, Shane, you got time?
What's that, Jim?
Okay, thanks, Terry. Chris Pogumel, Public Health.
Good morning. We're still continuing to see upper respiratory infections, the RSV, and some influenza going on. So we are giving the COVID and the flu shots still, and there's still enough time. Peak flu season starts in December, that time frame. So if you haven't gotten your flu shot now, would be a good time to get that. Our office is obviously closed on Thursday, but generally we give them on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8:30 to 4.
Okay. Krista, did you ever get that flu shot for people over 65?
We didn't. We have in the past, so it's the high dose. So we give what's called quadrivalent, which means it covers 2 influenza A and 2 influenza B viruses. But the high dose is for people over 65, and we've gotten them in the past, and we just didn't have enough people that were interested in it. Now we are seeing more people this year, so next year we'll look at bringing that back.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Did I miss anybody? Seeing not miss anybody, we should move on. For no correspondence. Guys, do you gentlemen have any correspondence?
I did not.
I didn't either. We shall move on to discussion and vote. We have the second public hearing for the proposed amendment to the airport approach regulations ordinance number 58.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Zach, we shall turn this over to you, as you're the one that worked on this.
Yeah, I don't know how much I wanna update you guys on. I talked about it last week. These are some amendments based on adding in some language on runway protection zones. That was as we went through the process to update the regulations for the city of Burlington. It was brought to our attention that those are something that were not included in the ordinance. That was after we had already kind of gone through the process here and been approved. And so we're just coming back to the county to amend the language in the ordinance to add in runway protection zones. We have the definitions, defined kind of the boundaries, updated the map to show what those zones are, and then have a little section on what the restrictions and regulations are. Other than that, yeah, I don't have a whole lot to update from what I talked about last week or before during the work session, so unless you guys have questions for me.
Okay. So you've added on this here, would be this section 5807, the protection zone use limitations. Is that what you're saying, Zach?
Section 58, that's the number of the ordinance. We added
The
4
07
things, 58.03 in the definitions. We added a definition for runway protection zone. And then in section 5804, that establishes the zones. That's the section that defines the boundaries for each of those runway protection zones on each runway. Section 5805, that's where it references the approach zones map. So the language in that section doesn't change, but we amended the map. And then section 5807, that's the runway protection zone use limitations, defines basically what you're allowed to do or not do within that zone. Those are four things that got changed. that we discussed, I guess, back in September, I think, when we had the work session.
Okay, let me read that, on that, the airport approach is probably the main one here, that 5803. For the runway protection zone, an area is fixed size underlying the innermost portion closest to the runway end of the approach overlay zone, that the runway is descending from the floor to the AO zone to the ground. The width, the length, and the RP zone may vary. And so it states in here that the innermost 2,500 feet of the AO zone is the southern end of the runway. The width of the RPZ is 1,000 feet, and the inner edge expands uniformly to a width of 1,750 feet. So, and this here is designed an area of the runway ended to enhance the protection of the people and property on the ground. See, anybody from the public have any comments on this? Mr. Green, do you have something?
Tom Green, 5763 Hardman Road. I have property within this clear zone. And, you know, it's my understanding, these are FAA mandates, I would assume.
Yep.
Okay, so we have very little we can do here.
Yeah, these are actually this is kind of coming from the Southeast Iowa Regional Airport. They asked us to adopt these regulations, but it's essentially to keep these areas clear that allows them to maintain the runways, keep them open, and keep basically their FAA funding in place. Otherwise, they can jeopardize either keeping a runway open or losing funding.
Totally understand that situation.
And I don't know if they've talked to you, but I know they've talked to a lot of the landowners.
I
Not
have
just
not.
in your area, but in other areas about either purchasing air rights or
Yeah.
purchasing property at some point when you're looking to sell or things like that. But if I can get you contact information over there if you want to talk to me
That'd
about
be
it.
good.
Yeah,
I'd appreciate
I can get
that.
that to you after the meeting.
Yeah, like I said, my understanding of the information that was sent to me was nothing new, nothing affected up to this point, only on new structures.
Correct.
Or if I wanted to put up, you know, anything that impeded into the air zone clearance, then they would have restrictions
Yeah,
on
then there
it.
might be some issues, yeah, potentially.
Okay.
That's correct, yep.
At the initial time, when this was put on my property, back in the late 1970s, when we built our house, there was financial preparation for that. Is there anything in that for that?
Not that I'm aware of. That I'd have to talk to the airport about that.
I expect
I'm
that too.
not familiar with that, but yeah.
Sure. Like I said, I have no issues other than, like I said, appreciate the heads up.
Yep.
Appreciate you keeping me informed.
Anybody else have anything?
I understand where Mr. Green's coming at, might be a Fifth Amendment taking.
Yeah. Yeah, well, again, Zach, you might know, if we decided to sell the property, there was a recent property that was purchased right on Summer Street, that was a small property, just like an acre or less. But if we decided to sell the property to the airport authority, they have the right of first purchase, is my understanding. I mean, I couldn't sell it to another private entity.
I think you
I think
could unless you have that agreement with them, and that's what I know they've worked with other landowners to basically have that agreement in place. I don't know that they get that right just without talking to you, but
I don't even think they want to purchase a bunch of land, but that's
No,
not
they don't have the
true. It
funds
just
to
has
do
to,
that.
everything has to stay the same. And you know, this started with, it was about funding, that's where all of this
Sure.
started with, so.
Sure. Yeah, understand. Again, I appreciate the keeping me informed.
Anybody online here or watching this, we'll give you 2 minutes to comment on this. You can call 319-753-8203, extension 4, or email board@dmcounty.com. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Chainsaw. I still can't get it.
You can't get your. Oh, sample one,
Yeah. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Surely those children weren't bored.
One wanted to stay for about 2 minutes into it, then he was ready to go.
Imagine.
Just think if Carter would have been talking, he would have been ready.
While we're on that 2 minutes, forgot Brian did call this morning. He said that the bridge project is going good on 99, and everything's clear, and he wished everybody a good, happy Thanksgiving. So, sorry I forgot to relay that to you.
Fastest Brian Carter report.
I told him I envied him because he's going to Branson.
There you go. I think that's our 2 minutes, Chairman.
2 minutes are up.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the second reading of the amendment to airport approach regulations.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Are we waiving the third,
Do we,
or do we need to?
Probably not for something.
Okay.
Mr. Green might get some interesting news that when he speaks to the airport authorities.
Okay.
up there too. We have approval of the 2022 gas electric assessment. This is for the Department of Revenue. Assessed valuation for gas and electric utilities for Moines County.
It's my understanding, well, I know that the gas and electric, the utility assessment, that's all figured at the state level.
Yep.
And if we want to collect any taxes off those entities, we need to approve their assessment. So I would make a motion to approve the 2022 gas and electric assessment.
I second that.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yep.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. I learned something over the weekend that, on this gas and electric, assessment. For the utility company, that we may not be getting taxes off of. We'll discuss that later. in one of our work sessions. We have a Class C liquor license for the Robinson Wedding, December 10th, Barn on the Ridge. Everything here looks in good order. I've been going through it earlier.
KG's not looking this way, so apparently he's satisfied.
Yep, insurance.
Yeah.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay. Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Did you do the utility assessment?
What's that?
Did you do the utility assessment?
Yeah, the gas and electric.
And there was,
There was a
the
utility
utility one was
assessment, wasn't
separate.
I thought he did.
That's one we did.
Oh, we did the first one, the gas and electric.
The utility one was separate. Number
Separate.
Letter C.
Okay.
Motion to approve the utility assessment.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yeah.
Jim Carrey.
Okay, we got 5 there. Correctional Center. First one is, Elliot Russell, correctional officer, full-time. Time off, 11/13/22 to 12/11/22. Next one is for Addison Clayton, or is that Clayton Addison?
Addison Clayton.
Addison Clayton, okay. It's a new hire. It's a part-time kitchen assistant, $9.36 an hour, effective November the 23rd. The next one is for Patrick,
Oh, he's comfortable with Patrick Go.
Patrick O.
Yeah. He's comfortable with
Patrick O. I
Must
could,
have been some
I could
problems
never
with
pronounce
that.
that. Correctional officer, full-time, 6-month step increase, $41,362.40 to $42,429.10. And the next one is for Brittany Whalen, kitchen cook, anniversary, 6-month step increase. Previous rate, $11.01 an hour. New rate is $13.56 an hour.
So how do you say that? Is it Ogogzalek?
Oglazalik, I think.
Wow. That's heavy. We'll just call him Patrick.
There's just
Go.
one Patrick, so.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Okay, we have the reports of the sheriff's monthly report for fees collected and the jail stats for October 2022. These will be on file in the auditor's office for reviewing at your own discretion.
Thank you, sir.
And we have the minutes for the regular meeting on November 15th, 2022.
Motion to approve? Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Then we have the minutes for the special meeting on November the 18th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. business?
I have none.
I have none either. Future agenda items.
I do need to ask when you want to set up the swearing in for the other three officials, for the county attorney, county treasurer, and board of supervisors. Which meeting date do you want to do that?
I will be here on the 20th. I will be back on my first meeting in January. I will be gone the 27th, I believe it is.
So you want to do it the meeting before Christmas?
Let's do it then.
That works for me.
27th?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll double check with Janelle
Okay.
and Lisa and make sure they're gonna be available then, so. And that way, because I need to let the courts know so we can have
We-
a judge
we-
come in.
We often skip the meeting between Christmas and New Year's anyway, so.
If you guys want to do that, you need to let us know so we can notify everybody.
Well, I won't be here, so they can do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want. It's up to you two guys.
Okay. Okay, future agenda items. Anybody have any future agenda items? I think, Kristen, you want to get the work station on vaping, you said at the board, at the health board meeting. So you can work that in with Terry and whenever you want to do that.
I think we've got one on the 6th with the county attorney for that funding
December
for
6th.
Yeah.
fentanyl. And I know Zach was coming up with something for toward maybe the 13th or after that.
I think maybe, that's why I was just checking the count, I think maybe we're looking at, could be the 13th, but I think maybe we decided the 20th. Because I think we were gonna get comments through the 9th, and then that would give us that week, that the 13th, if we need to make any changes.
Yeah, I
And then
think
we
you're
can
right.
have the work session on the 20th.
Okay.
That works.
Okay. Committee report.
I attended COBCO, the City County Health Insurance Board, in a meeting, and claims are up and they're higher than they've been in several years, so we'll have to wait a couple of months before we see the impact on the county's health insurance premiums. And I attended the EFSP, the Emergency Food and Shelter Program Board. It's a FEMA program that gives annual grants to organizations like Community Action, Salvation Army, domestic violence, that sort of thing. And to make the meetings legal, they have to have a supervisor there. So they asked me a few years ago if I would do that. So and they were discussing maybe expanding the board membership. They don't meet very often, once or twice a year. And that's all I have.
I had early childhood development. We talked about it a little bit, but they're having issues with getting doctors even fill cavities. So that's an issue that we're looking into. Also, the PBIS project has moved forward for the positive behavioral interventions and support. It's quite interesting. I still have some issues with some of that. I think not everything needs to be approved, but anyways, that's all on me. The other one is GIS. They're gonna order a new plotter, and then just going through budgeting, and that's it.
Chris, thank you again for giving my update on my meeting. I had a public health meeting, so that's nice about being on that board. You have to be in here. So, public input time. We'll give the public 2 minutes to call in, 319-753-8203 extension 4, or email board@dmcounty.com. We'll give you 2 minutes for that.
I think while we're waiting, Natalie should say something since you just got sworn in.
What's that?
I mean, your husband's here and everything, you might as well just, unless you're afraid to speak in front of your husband.
I actually talk more than he does.
We know, Natalie.
I just look forward to serving for the next 4 years, and I thank the residents of Des Moines County.
Well said. And congratulations again.
Boy, it's gonna be an awful long 2 minutes here if nobody speaks up.
Well,
Shane?
Carter's the one that normally has the jokes or the story to put in here.
Tom, tell us something interesting. This guy's got 1 million of them. And go.
I don't think you wanna hear something.
Have you hit any mailboxes lately?
Me?
Wasn't that you?
School bus?
Yeah, the school bus?
I haven't hit one since.
There's a public interest. I was about to say, you were still on camera, and she would do you like that.
He's
That's
talking
a total
about
question.
me? Me? Talking about me?
You know, the sad thing about that is, I think I'm being watched, because when I did that, when I got back into the school, first thing I did was call the transportation director and said I'd run over. He said, yeah, I know, they've already called you run over mailbox. He didn't even let me get mailbox out of my mouth.
That's just small town.
Yeah.
I have a question. What was the judge's name that swore Natalie?
Judge Dean.
Emily Dean.
Emily Dean? Thank you.
Okay, 2 minutes are up, and we have a work session coming up here with the county attorney and local health. So, what's an high, we're out of here.
All right.
Aye.
Give us about 5 minutes and Board of Health, County Attorney on the nuisance ordinance, and today is November 22nd, 2023. And we shall turn this over to,
Can I preempt this?
yes,
And I've had some public input on this. And I know that the board has struggled to tighten up the definition of nuisance, which is a completely subjective term. And we received admonitions of caution from the sheriff and the county attorney on applying some of that. And we focus on public safety, and I don't think we want a nuisance ordinance. I think we want a public safety ordinance that focuses on exactly what we're looking for. It doesn't confuse it. Like I said, nuisance, not the public's, almost any term is subjective to an extent, but nuisance is completely subjective.
yes it is.
And if we had a public safety ordinance, and I don't think that's a problem, even if I don't know what it deals with it in the code, but we have home rule. So we wouldn't be stepping on anything that the state says we can't do. Because we all share concerns for a handful of cases, and we've talked about keeping the complaints down to a minimum. Well, with nuisance in there, that's the word that sticks out. So, and I can't claim authorship for that idea, but I'm going to steal it. And Sheriff, what do you think? And you and Brian have talked. You're out in the county, and nuisance it's different in the county than it is in the city.
I mean, I think that the work sessions, the discussions we've all had have been very productive. I think it's my personal opinion, it is the goal to keep everybody in the adjacent property safe, healthy. When that starts to impact those adjacent properties, that's when it's the issue. I think the wording that's used, the area that I guess I wouldn't have the knowledge on and haven't looked into is where our ability to enforce how enforceable it is, because that's the struggle that we have with the dumping right now, and it's administrative action that can be difficult to enforce, where we can serve the notice on the illegal dumping. I guess that would be the question I would have on this is a public safety ordinance, is how do we enforce that? And I believe it would be limited to a simple misdemeanor.
So, yeah, one of the benefits of going to these CLEs, which, I'm not super.
Benefits of what now?
Going to these continuing legal educations.
Oh, okay.
Is you get a chance to talk to folks. And one of the things that I added, really the only thing I added other than what we've talked about, if you scroll to go to your last page or scroll to the bottom here, is you look at this section 7, injunctive relief. Any settlement or violation shall include injunctive relief protecting the county from any repeat offenses within a 5-year period of the date of signing of the settlement. So that's real simple, and it is a bit vague, but it does hit what we need, and each instance will be a little different. But, because you're right, Kevin's hitting the nail on the head, when all we really have is a simple misdemeanor and a little bit, no more than 1,000 in fines, and well, what this injunctive relief does, so the way these are handled is you have to go through small claims court. And so in small claims court, one of the things that's required is mediation prior to going to the court, Judge Judy, right? Really Judge Dean or Judge Bailey, but when you think small claims, I mean, you really think, Judge Judy, what was there, Joe Perro, or no, Judge Joe. you know, Judge Judy, Judge Joe, there's several shows like that, but they're all small claims court. Well, in Iowa, it's required to do mediation beforehand. So what we've done here in Des Moines County is several of our clerks have gone to school to be formal mediators, and then the clerks mediate with the parties. So most of these come to some sort of a settlement ahead of time and never go to the judge. Just the settlement's taken to the judge, and that judge then signs off on the settlement. So say we have, whether we want to call it a nuisance abatement or we want to call it a public health violation abatement, either way, we can then go ahead and with that settlement, whatever that settlement is, say they get it fixed within 30 days, 60 days, or they, you know, it gets pretty dynamic in what those settlements could be. But what they do is they just add on to their language that any settlement has an injunction preventing that party from having that nuisance again for 5 years. So what that does to us is then, instead of having to go back and go through the whole process from scratch every time and saying, okay, now you've reoffended, now we're gonna fine you again, or possibly throw you in jail for, you know, a weekend to a month. Now we have contempt. So contempt of court, the judges can't necessarily, especially down in associate court, their authority for fines is pretty low. I honestly don't even know what it is. But they can go up to 6 months in jail. That pops somebody's eyes, right? And you just file a notice. It's just a much faster process. We don't have to go through the whole process every time.
You mean having an ordinance like this?
Yeah.
Makes it faster.
Yeah, having that injunctive release, so during the settlement, you put it into, so, because you're right, otherwise it's just the same thing, you're starting over every time, it's just this at most simple misdemeanor, and it's being handled in small claims court as a civil infraction. So, to get it from being a civil infraction, which is very limited, to, and has this long front end, you know, notice requirement and all of that, it's now contempt of court. And they're at that point, they're not following the judge's order.
Where are you getting the 5-year period from?
Section 7.
No, I don't know where,
Oh, I see what you're
I
asking.
didn't do the research on this, I don't know where it came from.
Okay.
And I'm not an expert on injunctions, but I think if we go much past that, that's a pretty long.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe even 3 years, I think, would be plenty, you know,
Sure.
but.
I wouldn't argue that at all.
Is it a difference whether it's called nuisance or public safety? Or something
So-
similar?
I will have to change some of the language. Now, we're still gonna have to rely on nuisance. So part of it is there's state, we're really taking, part of it's home rule, but part of it's state authority and state legislations for nuisance. So we can call it public safety and then use the nuisance code section. I think as far as what we title it, I mean, I'm just mulling over this for the first time, but I think we can title it whatever we want, right?
Could we call it a public safety nuisance?
We could call it a public safety nuisance.
I just like the term public, I think that focuses our attention, its enforcement and everything, you know, they bring up, this is not a nuisance, which I said is completely subjective. This is a public safety, and I'm sure you're gonna have to have some definitions for that, and what would be, but, I just like another way of looking at it, because we have struggled up here trying to control the term nuisance, or if it's public safety, and our intention is clear from the start.
Right on, I agree.
Just as we're kind of spitballing here.
We all got a email from a lady down here on the Upper Plant.
Yes?
I went down and took a video of that, I drove down there. Them cars have been sitting back there, you know. All that is I didn't see anything out of the way. She says it's a nuisance. I didn't see anything that other neighbor was doing outside of there, just not as neat as the neighbor across the road. The cars were sitting in the back. Yeah, I don't know if, you go down and look at it?
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out, and I thought I seen like a refrigerator and some other stuff kinda. Yeah, it's definitely not good to look at. I've seen a whole lot worse, you know what I'm saying? Did I see if it was public safety issue? I didn't get close enough to it. I was parked a little bit down the street and where that turns, we can turn around at, and he was eyeballing me the whole time, so I was like, well, I don't want no drama. I just wanted to make sure I could prove that I was there and see what the heck she was talking about, but I took some long shot pictures, but.
So we delivered a notice to that property on October 31st for improper disposal of solid waste. And the reasons we found was the dump piles of shingles and trash. I think Shane forwarded me that email, and where this would start moving into an area. For that situation, what she says was happening is some of the debris was actually blowing across, I think, if I recall the email right. She said some of the debris was moving across. Obviously, in that situation, we'd go down there and take a look and see what's happening. If there's trash that's blowing from one yard to another, to me, you should control your trash. And that shouldn't start impacting a neighbor property. Where we found the violation was because of the dumping. The enforcement of that violation is difficult, it's long and tedious. There's a property down on 50th Street off of Summer that has been ongoing, and this has been about 2 years going now. And I think the board may be aware of this, where there's tires and additional items that have been dumped there. And we're now to the point where the DNR is going to file the administrative action to fine them. And I may not be saying exactly right how that goes, but it's basically there's a fine that's going to be put on them of like $10,000. But it's been a long process, and I could see how that'd be frustrating. I think the thing I like about this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the enforcement could even land to the deputies. I mean, we can go out, we can issue a citation, we can handle these violations, make that determination, and be part of that process as needed.
So, part of what we have to do, I think, is in researching this, and you look at the state nuisance ordinance. I think I talked about this a little bit last work session, is we're required to inspect within 30 days, I think it was. We're required to inspect every call of a nuisance that comes in. Now, it doesn't mean, it doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna find everyone a nuisance. It doesn't mean we go through this whole process. It might be we take a look at, Google satellite pictures, I don't know, I think they kind of lay those now. But, look, say, oh, yep, that looks like it's a mess, but it's not. I mean, I don't know, but part of that is we have this position, this nuisance compliance officer. And is that one of the deputies? Is that somebody we contract out? Is it somebody from the Department of Health, Public Health? Or do we bifurcate that and have it set up so deputies can be the first look? Because honestly, for you guys, you're out in the county, we get a call, somebody writes a letter to us or an email to one of you guys, you could just let let dispatch know, hey, somebody called in a nuisance, just have a deputy go out and the next time, they can just drive by, stop, look, I mean, they can't necessarily enter the property, right, but they can look from the side of the road and
That-
see.
That guy that, on Flint, he did have tires in the yard. Now, I remember years ago, and it was the DNR that was prompted by that, tire shops and stuff, where they had tires sitting outside, they'd clear all that stuff out. Because it just collects water, stagnant water, and mosquitoes and stuff like that. It was a big deal that they made it into a big deal anyways, quite a few years ago. So, I mean, I don't know where that stands with safety, you know what I'm saying? But I know the DNR made us clear out, I mean, thousands of tires. Heck, Phillips, they had to, well, everybody did. You know, they had to clear that, they had a certain amount of time, they had to get all those tires, used tires stacked up, had to get them out because it was a safety issue.
Well, and we have one of those in the county right now that's going on, and I think is it through your guys' office?
I think so, I think
Right.
Greg's been working with them, but I think isn't there a certain number, quantity of tires or something that DNR requires?
I don't
I remember
know.
hearing about it, but I
I
don't know the
don't
exact.
know the detail, but it's a situation where you had, you know, a lady had her grandson staying at the house, and he was doing people's tires, and he was taking all the tires out to the back 40, literally. And you know, Greg showed me the picture, I mean, there's probably 1,000 tires back there. I mean, all kinds of tires, and he'd done this for however many years. And now now they're talking to the property owner, grandma, and she's like, you know, what am I supposed to do? Fixed income? I mean, so you know, and that's when we get into these, so I understand your concern when you get into these nuisances. A lot of the times, they're not that, you know, the people aren't sitting in high cotton, right? They're not that way because they have all the money to fix it and they just decided not to. They would fix it if they could. Or, well, some of them need a nudge, but a lot of times it's gonna be hard for them to fix it. So I get the hesitation, but I think as we change this language, I think we can do it, and we can go ahead and, I mean, we can do whatever we want. So the first answer is we can do whatever we want as far as home rule, and that's correct. The second answer, the second question is, how enforceable is it? And so say we go through this process and send letters out, 50 to 75%, they're just gonna fix it on their own right away. There's that other 50 to 25% that's left over that they're gonna end up coming in and going to and negotiating with whoever that designated officer is, and putting together some sort of settlement. And then there's gonna be a smaller number coming out of that will go and fight and will come to that first hearing all by themselves and be freaked out and be like, okay, whatever you guys need. And they'll settle. So then we talk about the ones that make it all the way through and passed to a judge. And then once we have an order, we have an order. So then all of this, to the extent is it enforceable or not, it doesn't matter, they agreed to it. They went to the court, they've signed it, we've had a judge sign off on it, it's a settlement agreement that's signed, it's the judge's order, we're fine. If we have somebody that wants to contest it, goes to trial, makes the proper objections, and then decides to go on and appeal it, yeah, maybe then it might be overturned because we didn't use the exact language. But at that point, they're starting to spend their own real money, and why didn't they just fix it? See what I'm saying?
Well, shoot, you know, I don't wanna make this any more complicated than it already is, but I'll tell you, I still have to go back to, one of Tom's, comments from the beginning. You know, people move out into the country and stuff for a certain level of autonomy, you know what I'm saying? It's their place. And I don't like to infringe on that. I don't even like to do that in town unless it's grossly, you know, blatantly gross. But anyways, I think as long as we do keep the thought of public safety in mind behind all of this, I definitely think we'll get closer to it. I really don't even know how to, I'll tell you, I'm at a loss almost. I don't know where to go from this.
In this.
It's still pretty broad, these first, 6 things here.
I don't like the term junk in that first one.
I don't like that in the second
That-
sentence, junk, I don't like that because,
One man's junk is another man's treasure.
yeah,
Exactly.
metal. Right now, if you got a bunch of metal out there.
I'm sorry, guys, I had a visual. When I was a young attorney, one of my first cases, I had to get arraignment. So getting an arraignment signed here, they're all by writing. And so as defense attorneys, you have to kind of track these folks down to get their signature. Otherwise, the judges are like, why don't you have it signed? Well, can't find them, chasing after them, send them, anyways. So I ended up going to this guy's house, one of the repeat offenders, some minor mental health problems. Anyways, this guy has all of this junk. To get to the house, it's one of those, very typical Burlington, you park in the back, right? So you go into the back door, but this backyard, I mean, it is like a museum with all of this kind of junkyard art, and some of it was pretty neat. I mean, it wasn't great, but some of it was pretty neat. I'm like, oh, this is awesome, that's pretty cool, And this guy gets all excited, and he's like, oh, you gotta check this out. You
got the party started.
Oh man, I went through this whole house, look at this, I'm like, can you please just sign the piece of paper?
He's trying to sell a piece before you left.
Well, I never thought of that, but that's probably true. Probably true. Oh man, so I'm sorry to laugh, but that popped in my head. But you're right, one man's junk.
It's true. Yeah, I don't know, even on paper blowing or trash blowing, that would irritate me, but I've had neighbors' dogs come poop in my yard, I've had to pick it up, stuff like that, kind of goes with territory, and,
I had that happen too.
but I do think,
I stopped mine.
you made that dog
I
poop.
threw it on his front porch.
Jim went and said, I'm county supervisor, don't poop anymore. That dog's been holding it in for the last 3 years. Somebody needs to set that dog free.
That was 20 years ago, but it did.
He's exploded.
What are you doing? I said, I'm just giving your dog stuff back in my yard. I didn't even have a dog.
Do we need more time, boys?
Well, I like whoever told Tom that, about the new heading on it, but
I think, do we want to do public safety nuisance? I like that, because that
Yeah,
covers,
I like that.
that covers both bases. I think it does limit, like Tom's saying, it does limit it in an initial look, which is, most people never make it past the headlines anyways, right? An initial look, you look, oh, it's public safety, okay, got that. And then we can use the nuisance language throughout, and then that ties it right back to, because a lot of this is almost identical from the state code. And it's intentionally that way. I mean, we've edited it here and there on the edges to try to limit it down to public safety. But the good news is, if we're matching the state language and we're matching language from other counties, in theory, that language has already been tested, it's already been litigated, there's cases we can go to, point to, so that way the judge isn't looking at a question of first impression, which in judge's terminology means they can do whatever the heck they want. Literally, I mean, if it's first impression, they can kind of make it up as they go. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not, depends on who you get for a judge.
I just, we all just want to see this used not to make somebody that's broke be even more broke. It's just a matter of,
And I don't want to threaten them with the idea that this
Right.
is going to cost them an arm and a leg, and
Yeah.
if you've got some bunch of junk cars in your backyard or whatever it is, and it's out there, and it's, your neighbor doesn't like it, and understand that they're yours, and I don't want them threatened with something like that. And
I think if we word it right, there wouldn't be the argument that it's any more than an aesthetic impact. Obviously, we're not gonna enforce if it's just not visually appealing to the eye, but it has to be something that is actually causing that health or safety risk to the adjoining property. Not a trespasser. I mean, you can argue a trespasser might get cut on broken glass. For me, it's gotta be the impact on the neighboring property.
I agree, and I think that was your sentence that said it can't be merely aesthetic, it must be an actual health, safety, or fire risk to adjacent property. And then we've got the public at large, and I'm not sure what public at large means. If you go down to any abandoned refrigerator, freezer, or ice box which does not have the doors or locks removed therein, is that a state?
We looked at it last time, and if it has the ability to lock. So it's against the law to have a abandoned icebox or refrigerator if it locks. So I think that's based on the old iceboxes that would shut. You had to go in and lock them. But if it doesn't lock, then it's not a violation. And I just looked, it's 500 tires is a violation of the state code. And then the state has the code of the improper disposal of solid waste. So you can't make any property into a dump site without getting the state permit from the DNR. So you can have more than 500 tires, you just have to have a permit. You can have a dump site, you have to have a permit.
And I don't know that I'm interested in making anything tighter than you can make something more strict than the state is, but you can't make it less strict. If the state says you can't have more than 500 tires, we can't say, well, we're gonna let them have 250, because the home rule doesn't, we could say it's, or vice versa. We could say the 250, I mean 1,000, but we couldn't go 250. We can say the 250, but not the 1,000. We can make it more strict, but not less strict. But, and I don't know I want to make anything more strict than the state has. But I think that's
Give me a definition on number 5 of unguarded pits. Now, does that, unguarded, unguarded pits, that almost sounds like you gotta have somebody there guarding that stuff. Will a fence work for it, or?
It says freely accessible from any public roadway, street, alley, or
But
sidewalk.
it's gotta be unguarded. So, does the fence constitute as garden, being a garden?
For me, once we've made that change to the top definition, some of those definitions don't make any sense, because we made the change that it has to be that health and safety risk to the adjacent property. So for me, I mean, the wells and pits, the wells is also covered under state code, where you have to cover or pour concrete into, you have to seal those up. For me, like number 5 wouldn't make much sense, because it'd be hard to say that that's making a safety risk to an adjacent property. That would be a safety risk to a trespasser.
Right, right.
That's my question about what does a public at large mean? Other than, obviously, I know what it means, but does that override the
For me, it meant somebody driving on the roadway or walking on the public road, as opposed to somebody walking onto that property. But maybe that should be.
So if it's a risk to somebody that would be walking by on a public roadway, someplace where they have a legal right to be, but once they've crossed your fence or into your property or something like that.
That's what it would mean to me.
This is in-town county, that's what that is. That's you're living in the county, but you're living in town. For living out in the country, you know what I'm saying? I mean, what's the most walking you'll see is just walking the gravel roads, getting some exercise, nobody's.
Or an unincorporated town.
Right.
Like Danville, there would be a sidewalk or something there and they could be walking by, but typically out in the county.
Costas,
walking on the
Garland,
road.
all them little places,
Yeah.
So,
You're allowed on the public right of way, right?
Yes.
In other words, so if I wanna walk along in the ditch next to somebody's field, because
Yep,
that's, okay.
yep, you can walk there.
I suppose for 5, when you look at it and read it in its entirety, so all open unguarded pits, wells, excavations, or unused basements freely accessible from any public roadway, street, alleyway, or sidewalk. So I guess what it's saying, if you're gonna have an unguarded pit, well, excavation, unused basement, a great big giant hole, they want a fence around it. They want something, so if somebody's on
The
a
fence would constitute the
snowmobile.
guard.
Well, it wouldn't be freely accessible from the road at that point, right?
As long as they can get into
People-
it without crossing into your property. Because once they stepped on your property, then
Yeah, and it wouldn't meet the above
it
definition.
wouldn't meet that
Yeah,
definition.
I mean, I'm with you, I get it, but I think also, and this is in my head, you know, you got people with 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers, snowmobiles, going from place to place, and should they? No, because that's how people end up hitting fences and terrible things happen, I get it. But, that would be really, I think, probably the big concern. Except unguarded pits, you have sand pits. So say we have the quarries out by
We got quarries out there, that,
but they're
they
fenced
would,
off.
they would go in there.
Yeah,
Right, but they're fenced off, and they have a gate. I mean, you drive by, like on Sunday morning, I drive by on the way to church,
But some of
and
them,
they
you
have a gate that it's
know,
closed.
that's from the road. Some of them come in from the neighbors back there. It has been, 25 years ago, a guy fell in the pit out there at Raiders, you know, coon hunting, drowned.
Mhm. Yeah,
The sheriff, well, I appreciate his point that up in the first definition, it said it must be an actual self-hate your fire risk to adjacent property. So if it's adjacent property, I think the, public at large, whether you wanna rephrase that to say, you know, that you were on public property, or, I'm not sure, at least not to me, I'm certainly not a lawyer or judge, but public at large to me means
Anybody?
anybody. Whether they're wandering around in your field looking for mushrooms or whatever they might be.
it's certainly a definition that we would struggle with in the future, I think.
Public at large, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Just, I guess my level of input is, you know, when somebody does a construction project, out in the county, I mean, you will see them, dig footings for a garage or for a basement, and they're not, you know, in between time, they're not running a fence around it. And I'm not here to say that they should or shouldn't, but I would hate to have an ordinance that would put any more level of liability on that person for not doing that.
I agree.
And expense, if you're,
Yes.
I've been around construction, if you have to fence up everything every afternoon when you stop work, and then take it down the next morning and complete your work and then build, that would,
it's an hour a day.
an undue, well, depending on exactly what you're doing, that would be an undue burden on on anybody that was building that barn or that house, or I can get rid of the public at large, and the two mentions, like Jim mentions, the two mentions to junk, instead of departing flammable, maybe items or debris, and then two, just get rid of junk anyway.
Two are taking junk out, yeah.
You know, we started all of this because of number 4 down here. That's where this all started, and it's just
right.
blowing up since then.
There's some really specific issues, and it's kind of broadened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's broadening, and I'm not so sure we're fighting ourselves
That's a good
by
point.
just going with number 4 on the building, and then as we see things, and then add to it, you know, because the state's already got most of this in there, but we're doing this here for number 4 for for the building we got down south, we got it for the building there. The DNR's taking care of the tires, stuff like this we can turn in to the state and let them do their job.
Shut them down, run the batteries.
Shutting them down.
I think, I don't know why that's.
You know, he does that, so he looks busy because of the statement I made. That's why he's doing that.
Jim, I just want to add though, I think you're a good point, that's why I don't start at point number four, I don't think we should get too in the weeds.
Probably
From what we started for anyways, we're out in the county, this is county business, not city.
Unless you're
business.
getting low.
Okay.
Does it have to be specific to 1 through 6? I know you're talking about number 4.
Well,
mean,
I
if
already
you-
took that 5 off, and so we have 1 through 5. I mean, if some of them we don't need, I mean, if we're not worried about holes out there, then we're not worried about that. Right?
But it has to be defined, so it can't stop, and just asking because I don't really know, but it can't stop after officer and leave just health, actual health, safety, and fire risks? Or would that be too vague? And
You're saying that we don't necessarily need a list? Well, if
I
we go
guess that's
that
my
way,
question.
if we go that way, then I think that's the opposite, because if we don't have a list, then it's fully up to the discretion of that, I mean, and there is no bumpers, right? There is no left and right limit. It just is what it is. It's whatever that nuisance compliance officer says. Easier to enforce. I love that, easy for me.
I've got a lady that's having a health issue right now because of dust, lack of dust control, and the dust it's bothering her health, so, and I'm not saying that lightly, I'm just saying that, you know, it opens up so much.
There's
That's
a
a
number
good
of complaints we get about gravel roads,
It's like,
especially
man,
new residents.
I try to tell people, if you got issues with dust, you probably wanna stay in town. You probably don't wanna move out to the country, cause a lot of dust out there.
Yeah.
And Trent, as I'm looking at this, you could incorporate number 6 into number 4. Because it says any structure to be a fire hazard, you know, spreading to a property, the fire marshal and jurisdiction, you know, and we're talking about buildings up there. So 4 and 6, you could just add that about to that number 4.
Okay.
See what I'm saying or not?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys agree with that, but.
No, I'm all for compressing this into our problems that we really have an interest in.
Because then it's stating it all in one paragraph there.
Huh?
I don't know.
No, I agree, we started this for one particular reason.
That's,
And,
that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go back to that one particular reason we started it with.
Right on.
And stay with that. And then if we see other problems evolving, getting broader and broader, then we come back and take a look at this. Well, maybe we ought to add this to it. Then we can have that conversation between the sheriff and everybody. I don't know. That's my feeling on it.
Yeah.
I think it's getting too broad.
no, I agree. Every once in a while, when I was a kid, my mom used to be in the grocery store and she'd tell me I could go get a bag of cookies.
You took 2.
Well, then you pass all number of things. So I go back, well, I'd end up making another trip, taking it all back.
Make it to the cookies. Hands are fun.
My dad ran a restaurant when I was little, up in Minneapolis, there where the apron strings at. And I can remember sneaking in there, we'd be playing on Main Street, and I'd sneak in, and had that sliding door on that candy case. When he wasn't looking, I'd grab a couple candy bars for Dee and I, and we'd run outside and we'd eat them. Dad'd come out, "What are you doing?" Chocolate all over you, you know it.
Nothing.
So sorry, your dad ran the restaurant before it was Apron Strings?
My dad had the apron string. He bought it in 1948.
I didn't know that.
And he had it until, 62. He had it with my aunt and uncle, and they bought in with him. And in 1962, I bought my aunt and uncle out and ran the apron string. And in '66, I sold my half to Dad, and then I bought the tavern across the street. And then-
I got one last question, though, just real quick. Is there any way that we could leave this and then just do a public, on a standalone public safety ordinance number 124, and then have with a focus on the 4 and 6, and kind of leave this stuff to, can we do that? Can we separate that out? Think of things like, I was just trying to make it easier, just because, again, you know, I'll have to call Lady back this afternoon and tell her that there's really not a whole lot we can do because her neighbor's kind of sloppy. You know, it just comes down to safety issues, and that's what it, you know, that's what we're looking at right now, is the place burned down and left, you know, and abandoned, is it a dumping site, you know what I'm saying? And the windows are busted out, the place is
Part
abandoned.
of it's dealt with by state law, the dumping and what was it, tires.
DNR takes care of a lot of that stuff.
I would leave them to that, but yeah, I would like to focus on this, on our original problem.
And on number 4, you know, where it says all buildings so old, I'd take the old out of there and just all buildings so dilapidated.
Okay.
Dilapidated, damaged, or out of repair, or whatever.
Yeah, but you've got, tell you what, you got a lot of old buildings in this county.
But it has to be-
1800, you know,
But this
people
has to
still
be,
living in them.
that has to be an adjacent, a risk to the adjacent property up there at the top. And we've taken out the public at large, so it just has to be an adjacent property, which would narrow
Yeah.
a lot of things down.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can do all of that. I know when you talk about separating it out, I mean, everything else is kind of the enforcement arm of it. I don't know.
Well, and the rest of it, and anyway, then there's another, there will be another ordinance, you know, for abandoned, if something's
Yes.
declared abandoned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think probably that's,
And,
but,
and that's part of the changes here between this and that is we pulled in that language for notice. So we pulled in the notice requirements as they are for, you know, for a detainer, FED, forcible entry detainer. So that's essentially the eviction requirement notices like we talked about. And then we also pulled in that 808.14, I think it is, requirement to where they go out, we send them a letter, and they have 20, 30 days to respond, however many it is. And if not, we have a warrant, so we can go out there with the compliance officer and a deputy, and they can then enter the property with notice and the warrant to look to see whether or not it is a nuisance, an abandoned structure, or, so when all that language is in there, so I think we can still do that.
the rest of it just deals with enforcement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Sorry for all your hard work, and want to scrap a lot of this, but we want to make it easy for the county.
Yeah, no, I.
Go back to step 1 where all this come about, you know, and that's.
Easy on everybody involved, including the public at large.
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
But to be able to address the small handful of serious problems we have. I don't want to make a bunch of rules for a couple, 3 problems you might have a year, and
Well, No, I agree 1,000%. We always talk about that in the military, how every time somebody screws up, you get a new rule. And so you have all these rules because over the course of the last 225 years, there's been a lot of knuckleheads that have done a lot of stupid, crazy stuff. You never would imagine, well, every time there's a new rule. Well, now you got 200,
That's a good point.
yeah.
A lot of knuckleheads.
I used to have to be in bed by 8 o'clock. That was my rule when I was a kid going to school.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind going back to that now, but my wife won't let me go to bed at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm the nuisance officer, so it was talked earlier that, say there was a call on the weekend, it was kind of an emergent situation, and Kevin's officer goes out to look. Does that need to be changed if it just says nuisance compliance officer, or is there a
Well-
way to add that in there? To where they could be the first eyes on?
I don't think that hurts. I think if they go and check something out, the nuisance compliance officer, I suppose, in theory, I'd have to look and see. They could just talk to the deputy that went out and saw it, or look at the incident report based on the call, and which might be 2 sentences. I went out there, I looked, it's not a nuisance, or, this is what I saw. And I don't, do you do an incident report on every call or not?
I mean, we would if it's gonna generate, a situation like this is gonna be ongoing. So, if it's something that's just unfounded, probably not. But if it's something that is, gonna be ongoing, then yeah, we would create that document and that way we have it to refer back to.
Yeah, so,
We don't wanna put a lot of extra work on the sheriff's department either.
right, and so I think that that's kind of where we're at is, I think that they would probably still have to go out unless we had a report that said, hey, went out, and it doesn't have to be lengthy, went out, so, based on a phoned in complaint, ABC, 1, 2, 3, looked at the property, did not appear to be C, Y, or D, therefore, not founded, and we can work with that. And that, the beauty of that is then we have a paper trail too. Or we could have that nuisance compliance officer go out every time and realize we're talking about having, part of the difference is economic, depending on how that contract's put together, but if we're contracting out for this nuisance compliance officer, and we're saying, or the Iowa legislature saying, we have to go out and put eyes on every one of these complaints that come in, based on not our limited definition, but based on their definition, if somebody calls and complains, we're supposed to have somebody go out and look. I think honestly, having deputies just stop and check when they're out and about anyways, isn't a bad idea. And they can do it as a welfare check almost, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be just a ordinance violation. I mean, that's why we'd go out there, we'd go follow up on a complaint, and based on that, we would either document on the call card. So there's gonna be some level of documentation no matter what. And I don't wanna, it seems like this would be limited enough as the ordinance has been whittled down to where it is, that I don't know what the scope of the contract will be, but we certainly wouldn't mind being the initial eyes on. And I say that at this point, that who knows where it'll go, but I don't see this getting out of control.
I don't.
With this level of ordinance. So I don't know what kind of costs you're gonna have involved in a contract, but we can certainly be the initial response. I see this as being a limited issue.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Willing to do that.
That's our goal.
Work with us, yeah.
So we can write that into the next step after.
But I do like what Tom come up with, the public safety ordinance.
Yeah, I think, what do we put, public safety nuisance?
I wouldn't put nuisance in there myself, you guys might.
I mean, I still think it's a nuisance, but I just think it's a.
It is just, basically, it's just addressing one issue.
But if you put nuisance in there, then that puts it right back
Well, whatever makes it cleaner,
Well,
I'm good with it.
It limits it, I mean, it does limit to public safety nuisance. And I mean, we can try it however you guys want. I would prefer if we're gonna do that, if we go with public safety nuisance, because we're still adopting all of the nuisance protocols. And we're really using nuisance law, it is nuisance law. Otherwise, we don't wanna get kind of stuck into a corner of no, this is a public safety issue. We have all kinds of administrative laws on dealing with public safety from the federal and state government, and you need to follow those. This is a different animal. And
So we would need the nuisance in there to use those protocols.
I think we're very, very sound to be able to use those protocols if we have nuisance put in there. I think if we're still referencing the same code sections, it's gonna be all over inside the ordinance, right? So it's not in the title, but I think it's a lot better if we have public safety nuisance in the title. Because otherwise, and that's what I put up several of them up there, you know, public safety violation, public safety, what are we gonna call it? We're not just gonna call it public safety violations. Or we put public safety nuisance violations.
I've got 11 o'clock, boys. I gotta get ready to head out.
Where?
Heading out of town, getting out of Dodge.
Where you gonna be?
I've got, 11, out to the Randy's place. Yeah. Out to the casino, I always forget, what's it called?
I don't know there. Oh,
Randy
you're talking
Weingart's.
about Weingart's.
Yeah. I gotta be out there at 11.
My neighbor's Randy, and
I gotta be at the police department.
beer across the street.
They let me drink no beer, but I do gotta show up, I told them I was coming. But I'll leave it in your capable hands, Jimmy, Thomas, you know, I
Take
trust
care.
you guys more than I trust my own fingers.
You have a great Thanksgiving.
Hey, same to you guys. Thank you.
See you, Shane. Well, we can decide on that heading then. I guess I'll go along with that, public safety nuisance ordinance.
I'll think about it for now. That probably doesn't sound too.
Would like to get back to the basics on
Yeah.
what we're working on. That's,
So just to wrap my mind around it, we get a call, we respond, I guess the way I have my thought process is, if you observed a violation, the initial step would be to complete your report, have a great Thanksgiving. Complete your report, but also deliver that letter that notices them that, hey, we've observed a violation, this is the violation we've observed, and then we would forward that likely to the health department and you, and probably the board.
Yeah, or just the health department, really.
health department first,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it could be, and I think you know your job way better than I do. But I think, yeah, if you do that, you go and you observe, you could even talk to whoever called it in, right?
Yeah, we do all that, we would document all that, but what I'm saying is, to deliver that notice, we're not gonna, even making it a simple misdemeanor, we're not gonna charge somebody initially. We're really just gonna deliver a notice, that would be my preference, is we're gonna deliver a notice and say, hey, you're in violation, this is the reason you're in violation, and this is what needs to be done to fix it. And then that would initially start the process, and then we can kind of confer from there and wade through this.
And the appeal,
Because we're gonna be the last.
the appeal
resort.
process would still be
Yeah.
to the Board of Health and then to the Board of Supervisors.
So it should go to the board,
Yeah.
wouldn't have to let us know until the board decided that, hey, it's time to let supervisors know.
Because, yeah, and honestly, I think for the deputies out there, I think they go, they look and they can let them know, and people out in the country, if somebody's there, they're gonna walk out, that's pretty typical. So, they can let them know, hey, we got this complaint, you know, we're gonna forward our findings on to Department of Health, but they're not even necessarily gonna know what to say. I mean, they haven't sat through with all these meetings to know, so I think they're just gonna say, hey, we got this complaint, we're just writing down what we're observing, we're sending it to the Department of Public Health, they'll make a determination, and
So we've got notices that we put together, so I'll probably put together a template for them that'll just document the ordinance. Once it's complete, they'll document, hey, this is the reason we're here, this is what we've observed in violation of this. And then that would, they just kind of fill in the blank of that template. So they've been delivered that notice, and then we would forward that along with the report to you.
I was kind of envisioning this a lot like with the rabies vaccine, with the rabies now, where they go out and everything's fine, then they just write a report, send it over. And if we did something like that with a template, and if there was a simple box that said, no observation made of a violation or whatever, if they did that and sent it over and we kept that record, would that meet this complaint within 30 days situation?
I think it does. I think it does. I think we're then protected from any of that. And, yeah.
Because you guys do a great job with the rabies and the dogs and the bites and those kind of things. And literally, I reviewed that. If there's anything that's questionable, I'll pick up the phone, like if it says, you know, they didn't go see the doctor, I'll follow up on that. But yeah, I mean, that works really smooth if we can do something like that.
Yeah. Because otherwise, if we get into trying to have an individual deputy out there say whether or not it's a violation, I think to get that, I think we need to get, you know, and I know you don't like the meatloaf analogy, but we need to get deeper into the weeds of what's really going on, what's it really look like. And I see a lot of calls coming from deputies. This is what I see, what is it? And whether they're calling me or whether they're calling the designated officer, it's gonna be hard to say without seeing it and being there. And
even involving like the fire marshal, like we're not qualified to make a
Yeah.
assessment that this is the fire risk, like what he did on 108th Avenue. I mean, for me to reach that opinion would be pretty difficult. But the fire marshal, I mean, he's the expert in that. So
Yeah.
So maybe it's just a form that says, we drove up, there's broken glass all over the place. You forward that, maybe then we contact the nuisance officer. Or everything looks fine, there doesn't appear to be anything, and then we just file that and it meets the criteria?
Yeah, because 80% of these are probably gonna be, you know, like the dust. I get it. I have all kinds of friends in the country, and I tell you, that number one complaint is that SOB that didn't pay to have sap thrown down, and then the next biggest complaint is all those SOBs that drive by 35 miles an hour or faster, and they don't know how much dust that kicks up, and we're trying to air out the house, and you know, and
you wouldn't be able to keep up with a lot of those definitions.
You know,
Once they knew somebody was gonna respond to them.
the speed limit on a country road, on a gravel road, is still 55 miles an hour unless it's posted.
During daylight, 50 at night.
50 at night, but 55 in the day, unless it's posted.
Which is really fast on new gravel.
Oh, new gravel, you don't want to drive that fast on new gravel. And if you have any of these complaints, if it has anything to do with dogs, leave my name out.
The complaints we always get is about the Danville school buses going over 55 on gravel. I don't
That's
know.
good, that's good.
You run me off the road regularly.
You know what? I'm glad, because I drive for New London.
How did I miss that? Is that new? I thought you drove for Danville.
I drive for New London. I drove for Danville, well, it started out with them, and then I went back for 1 year, and then I went back over to New London.
Gotta keep up. My shots miss.
But the buses all still leave from Danville, right?
They what? No.
They don't share buses anymore?
No, they don't, they don't share buses, no, they never did.
Oh,
And what they do, New London hires the mechanic
Yeah,
to take care of them, you know, they got together and so the mechanic takes care of them.
that was just one mechanic with different buses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different buses.
I'm with you. That makes sense.
So, we've only got 3 routes over there and they got, what, 6 in Danville?
Well, I don't know.
And besides, you don't have to pay
Thank you, Sheriff. You have a great Thanksgiving.
Absolutely, you all do the same.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yep.